Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
I can
I
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh, there's Justin. Apparently, he doesn't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, all right.
I just gave you the hang loose sign.
Oh, my internet connection is unstable, it says. Damn it.
Yeah, you are unstable, Joe.
Sorry.
I got my Christmas going on today. Yep.
Love it.
Too funny.
What microphone are you rocking there? You sound really clear.
I have an ATR 2100 USB mic
Okay.
from Audio Technica. Love it. Julie has one too. I recommend it to pretty much anybody that wants to sound awesome.
Yeah.
It's about $100.
Gotcha.
Know where the fabulous Julie Clark is?
Fashionably late. She might be stuck in traffic.
Yeah,
Traffic of two 10-year-olds trying to get mom's attention.
right.
So I had to drive out today to get blood, which I'm currently giving blood. Anyway, there was they've closed the West Seattle Bridge completely, so I had to go all the way south.
Oh.
Christ's sake, I know the drill.
Awesome.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning.
I started that early.
For the next couple weeks, we want to know. Okay, so go ahead and give that number a call.
Okay.
Just curious, can you all see the participants so you can see everybody, or is it just can you see who's up top for yourself?
I can see everybody.
Cool. Oh,
Yeah, there's a button in the top right of your display box that you can either go to speaker view only, or you can see the whole panel. And I think it shows about 20 of us at a time.
great.
Good morning.
Hey guys, sorry about that.
Oh,
You want to know a funny story is that I'm using my daughter's laptop and they have loaded so much crap on the computers, I can barely get stuff to load up. And then I'm trying to use the cursor and they've changed it into the head of like Peppa Pig. And I can't tell where the cursor lands. So I can't click on anything. So I was in panic mode there for a minute. How's everybody doing? Mine's still launching here. I can't see you guys yet.
I thought my snacks. I didn't want to leave trash, and then thank you very much.
So while Julie's getting loaded up here, I think that the good way to do this is to, if you think there's going to be any noise in your background, mute yourself, and then when you talk, just unmute it, so we don't have a bunch of background noise going on as other people are talking. And feel free to use your video if you have it or want it, so we can see your pretty faces. What's up, Liga?
What's up, Joe? What's up, SIC? Life is.
I'm sorry you cut out for me a little bit. My internet is sad. I'm in Lake Chelan right now. Sad internet.
Hey guys, we're going to attempt to do this today. It's not going to be perfect. Mine's still launching here. I don't know why, but I want to kick it off as if everybody's ready. Keith, are you there?
Oh, yeah.
Right on, brother. Why don't we just kick it off with a lending update from you? Is Nee on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. And how about Beth? Are you on the line yet? Not yet? Okay. And we have Elisa Zhang's going to join us here. Are you on yet, Elisa? Not yet. Okay. So Keith, why don't you kick us off with just a lending update in regards to, general traditional buy and sells, and then interested to know, of course, about, the ability to do investment property lending and so forth right now.
Sure. So the world of long-term mortgages has really been rocked in the last week and a half, 2 weeks. So we've got the traditional Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA world, which is still moving along. They're adapting as best as they can to drive-by appraisals and all that good stuff if you're Fannie to Fannie or Freddie to Freddie. So those worlds are as best they can in this market moving forward. The non-QM mortgages, which aren't quite Fannie Freddie, but aren't hard money exposures, that market is really contracted, and a lot of them have suspended business for the next 2 or 3 weeks to let everything shake out. Long story short, a lot of their end investors are like, hey, we're not going to touch this right now, because those deals are typically done for debt service coverage ratio approach or self-employed, who are having a really hard time right now, because the debt service coverage ratio folks are like, well, we're basing this loan based off the ability to repay through your rent getting paid. And we have a lot of people that aren't able to pay the rent. So that's taking a direct impact on the performance of those notes. The other situation, as far as the self-employed, the small business owner right now is getting kind of rocked as far as trying to mitigate that. My dad included. My dad owns a small body shop in Portland, Oregon, and he's had to lay off like 3 of his 7 guys because no one's bringing their car in to get repaired right now. So that market has kind of retracted, and it's just been put on pause, and we'll see how it comes out the other side. It was very nice on the mortgage front, as well as the markets in general, when we dropped a 3.2 million new unemployment claims this week, that the markets didn't freak out, and we just all as a society understood that we're in this together. We're not gonna balk at that number. It will get worse before it gets better, and we'll just keep moving on. So that's good. The last thing that I'll say as far as the mortgage market is concerned, one person on this call, if they want to venture their information, fine. They asked me earlier this week if they should do a max draw on their HELOCs and access capital. I do believe the forecast with where we're going, should slowdowns in major metropolitan areas last longer than 2 or 3 weeks, that we could see it, quote, a declining market. And once that happens, underwriters change their appetite for cash out and access to capital. So it is one thing that you need to take a look at if you are going to continue your business going forward and you need that capital on a HELOC, because HELOCs are not traditional first mortgage liens, that they can be changed at the lender's discretion whenever they want to change their underwriting guidelines and credit criteria. So those are my updates, if anybody has any questions.
Keith,
Anybody else have any? Go ahead.
I just a question for Keith. Can you clarify, like, when you talk about Fannie to Fannie or Freddie, those standard loans, what about like if you finished a flip with hard money, but your conventional buyer is coming in to take it out?
Great question.
Yeah.
So Fannie, Freddie have already come out and said on purchase transactions, they're willing to do a drive-by at a minimum of 5% down. So your first-time home buyers that were trying to put 3% down, they would still need a full interior exterior appraisal. The people that are putting down 5 or more % on a purchase for the short term, and this underwriting letter is only through the 12th of May, that this is a good thing for us, is that until the 12th of May, Fannie and Freddie will accept a drive-by appraisal on a purchase. I was referring to Fannie to Fannie. That's on a refinance. If you're refinancing a mortgage that is serviced and owned by Fannie Mae and you're going to do a new Fannie Mae loan, they will either do an automated valuation and just completely waive the appraisal altogether up to 90% loan to value, or they will allow you to do a drive-by, which means the appraiser doesn't have to go into the house. Freaked out homeowners don't have to let an appraiser into the house. I'm going through a refinance right now, and I just got off yesterday. I set the appointment for the appraiser to come into my house. They requested before the appraiser walks into my house that I open every single door and window in my house. And then after 5 minutes that has happened, the appraiser will come into my house. That's kind of the world we're living in right now. So just, you know, be flexible.
Yeah. But in terms of buyers being able to buy, you know, traditional buyers are still able to purchase your houses, right?
So long as they're putting down 5%, otherwise
5%.
it will require an interior exterior appraisal. And some appraisal companies just won't go into a house right now. Others will, but there's going to be different hoops to jump through. Aaron, in your situation, if you're the seller, you're really amicable to get it sold. So you're willing to let somebody into your house. There's other paranoid people that maybe they're transitioning out of that house and moving into a new house, right? They don't want somebody coming into their house. So it's, in your case, I think you're fine either way.
It's vacant anyway. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So we have a comment here from Adrian Chu. Adrian, if you're there, go ahead and talk to us. He says, I drew my HELOC and will try to minimize my losses by doing. Go ahead, Adrian.
Hey, Julie. Hey, yeah, so I, after kind of seeing what people have been saying about the chance of a HELOC going away, I decided to draw my HELOC and try to offset that by, you know, just throwing it in, you know, either online risk-free CD and, you know, I'm looking at you know, whatever bank bonuses there are out there. Found one with Citibank. You throw 200 grand in there, they give you 1,500 after 3 months. So that kind of helped offset the HELOC interest. I'm paying like 4.5 to 5, like high fives for the HELOCs, 2 HELOCs.
And where are you getting your HELOCs at?
One was through BECU. I've had both for a while. One was through BECU, one was through First Tech. The BECU ones at like, you know, 4.59%. The First Tech ones at like somewhere in the high fives. So got to figure out some way to offset it while we, you know, have that money sitting.
So Adrian, you in particular are a great guy to talk to because you're both a broker, investor, you work with developers and you're a developer yourself. What's your overall take on the market right now in regards to what are you doing? I mean, you're probably focusing on just getting your own properties, you know, under control, and, you know, are you talking to tenants, and what's the feedback that you're getting from either tenants or your builder and developer friends, or what?
Builders and developers are still buying. They're still bullish. I'm still bullish. I think, you know, once this virus goes away, we should, you know, go back to normal. As far as tenants, I haven't had any tenants reach out to me. I've been starting to see, you know, April rent payments coming in. So let's see. Fingers crossed.
And you know, you do a lot of leasing as well. Do you find that you're still actively leasing?
I don't have anything active right now that I'm trying to lease up. But yeah, I work with a lot of investors that, you know, want to buy rental properties, so we help them out with leasing as well.
So let's see, Julia says, first-time home buyers that utilize the down payment assistance program through the state of Washington no longer have to have an inspection, usually a requirement of the loan. Anybody want to make comment on that?
I just had a listing where the buyer had to do a last-minute inspection. They waived inspection from the get-go, and apparently, you know, for the loan to close, because they're using the state bond, you know, kind of first-time home buyer assistance program, and they had to throw in the last-minute inspection, like 1 day before it was supposed to close. So we ended up extending the closing date by a day. So it's supposed to close today now. Yeah, for financing, if they're using a first-time home buyer state bond program, like down payment assistance program, then they have to do an inspection. So apparently they didn't know that from the beginning. So they ended up doing it, you know, 1 day before the loan was.
Yeah, I looked at those too. What are your thoughts?
Everybody who's not talking, turn your mic off. Everybody who's not talking, turn your mic off. We can hear you. Hi, Beth. All right, guys. Sorry about that, Adrian. So
No worries. Yeah, I had I had a listing that's supposed to close today, but that buyer didn't know that they had to do a home inspection for the state bond, down payment assistance program. So they did that, one day before it was supposed to close, which is kind of odd to me that nobody told them that they had to do it. And because they did it, then they ended up asking for inspection concessions. And, at this point, we just wanted to close, so we gave it to them. So that's another reality of this market.
Right.
Yeah, but they waived inspection from the get-go.
So that's a
Yeah, they didn't know that they had to do an inspection. So I guess now, if they don't have to do an inspection anymore, then that issue wouldn't have happened.
So let me speak to that really quick. It's effective as of today because the stay-at-home is now in place. But that was a poor mortgage professional, because we all known since the Washington State Housing and Finance Commission has been around that you have to have an inspection. It doesn't have to be in executable as far as the purchase and sale is concerned. I've done stuff like it's just a walkthrough inspection just to make sure and to get a paid invoice, but that was just a poor mortgage professional.
What about like pre-inspection and then waiving? Does that still count?
Yes.
Dan, why don't you pipe in? Dan Sanchez, typing up your notes here. Just go ahead and start talking.
Oh, hi. Hey, yeah, I was just chiming in on the Washington Housing Finance thing. I just think it's weird that they would even let somebody, a zero down person, buy a house without an inspection. But also, for people who didn't catch it, about a week ago, they said they would allow video home buyer classes. You just have to get permission.
Yes.
Okay, good one.
Yeah, if you go to the schedule right now, all the classes online are virtual, which is super awesome, because if we can control that as real estate and mortgage professionals, it'll be a much more effective show. It's set up on a Zoom meeting or something similar to that, but it's so much better than what the state provides.
Yeah,
no one from the state's on the call, right?
Yeah, and if they, especially if they let us do that in the future afterwards, that's what I'm hoping, that some of this will create like new habits and new things that people will suddenly be okay with virtually,
If I'm an owner of office space right now, I'm really scared for what's going to be on the other side of this.
Is Elisa Zhang, are you on yet at all? No. How about Beth? You want to talk, Beth, for a minute about what you guys are up to in your own portfolio, or what you've been experiencing the last week or so, as well as what your, Flynn Family Lending, what the response is from some of your private lenders? If you're there or not. Okay. How about, anybody have any more questions about lending that they would like to get answered? You can either type it or you can say it. Tanya Lopez says, what about HELOCs on investment properties? We covered on that for a minute, but does anybody want to chime in a little bit more about HELOCs on investment properties? Go ahead, Jared.
So are many people seeing their hard money lenders changing terms or not lending? I heard that some of the local lenders aren't lending at all anymore.
Oh yeah, Rain City went bonkers, man. They tried to, I've done loans with them, and I just closed a $900,000 hard money loan with them 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And today, or starting yesterday, they try to tell me for this little deal I've got closing next week, they want 4 points. They raised the interest rate by 1 point. Wow. And they want 12 months worth of payments escrowed up front.
That's for Rain City.
Back off on that a little bit, but
that's crazy.
Aaron Royce says that to talk to interest on hold.
We're done.
Can you talk?
Yeah, they're not lending on flips in the short term. So I talked to Carolyn over there just the other day. And I talked to Tarl, who had a personal conversation with most of the lenders, and they're out for the short term.
Hey guys, with interest, I want to pipe in here really quick. With interest, they are lending, but it has to be one of their own internal deals that they bring to you. So if you still want to do a flip, they'll lend on their own deals.
So I finance most of my properties with Lending Home, and they're still lending as well. They changed their terms to a $4,000 processing fee, and they're 1.5 higher on their annualized interest rates now also, which it kind of sucks. But I mean, I'm still curious of like other lenders. I've had a lot of people still reach out to me lately asking for deals also, but I don't know if that's strictly private money, but I've heard the institutional money is pulled out of most of the hard money lenders.
Adrian, go ahead and pipe in.
This just feeds back to the fact that HELOCs are more valuable now. If you're getting, 4% money, 5% money, 6% money when all these hard money lenders are pulling out, I mean, that's the only source left, really, unless you have private lenders.
Do you think they're still going to be accepting applications for it, though? I feel like anyone who tries to get in line now is going to be...
That I don't know. I haven't tried. But, these are HELOCs that I've already had, so, yeah.
Has anybody attempted to get a HELOC recently?
So the two outlets that I send my HELOCs to are still full steam ahead, and they're still operating as usual. Now, I would just say this, the retraction that we saw last week, at the end of last week, was a lot of non-QM carnage and hard money carnage. And to Jared's point, yeah, the institutional money is completely pulled out of out of the hard money spectrum until things settle down. So your cost of funds is going to be more expensive. Going back to somebody's question about what about HELOCs on investment properties, still trade you and Key Bank. Those are the two places that they're most abundant. The thing is, when lenders go to retract their HELOC guidelines, they're going to start with non-occupieds and second homes first. So just know that that will be the first wave of letters that go out, and then the second wave of letters will be on owner-occupieds.
Who was the first one you said? You said Key Bank and someone else.
Key Bank and BECU.
Mm-hmm. BECU just approved the HELOC for a client also.
One thing to note about BECU, so apparently they told me because I tried applying for another HELOC with them a while back, and they told me that because my income comes from real estate, and if I try to get a HELOC on a rental property, it's considered a business purpose loan, and they're not willing to do it. So that's something to consider. If your income comes from real estate, they will say that to you.
Hey, Beth, are you able to unmic yourself?
Yes.
How's it going over in your world with your private investors and your own personal stuff?
Our phones are ringing off the hook because we're one of the few that are still lending. We don't change our rates. We don't change our terms. We've had to back out of just a few of them because they've dragged on too long, really. And we're just tightening up our criteria just to make things safer for our investors. But we're still doing second position loans. People don't want to wait for an appraisal, they can come to us. But I'm just getting an influx of people who are trying to save their development land deals or their 10%, 90% loan to cost loans. And we keep telling them this is not the time. This is really not the time.
So what type of lending terms are you seeing that are working for you guys?
Well, in seconds, we're trying to stay below around 60% loan to value. It kind of nixes out a lot of people just because they're too high levered at the moment. Those are the people we can't help. They just got themselves underwater, and it's just too risky at this point until we know what happens. With 2 weeks and no work going on, it's really hard for us to want to commit to any sort of loans that are that high risk. People coming with 10% down really don't, and wanting loan to cost loans for all their rehab and to take down the property is just too risky. I'm not sure why they're even asking at my point, but I don't know if other lenders are doing that. Maybe Nee can tell you.
Nee, are you out there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Cool. I think first and foremost, if you guys haven't already seen the news this morning, Certain Lending has paused all of our loans as well. So that includes both short-term and long-term loans. We did that last week. And I can tell you, I've been watching just everything as much as I can. And I would say at this point, you know, like we usually, you know, before we did direct loans, we were a broker, right? We work with trusted lending partners. And at this point, there's very few that I trust. And our criteria has always been, I don't really care what terms people offer. I care that they close. And right now, I can't trust any hard money lenders to close, right? The whole past week on a daily basis, lenders were pulling out, were changing their terms, and you know, initially saying yes, and then saying no. And it's just, I think that frustrates me. I think it's too risky to use hard money right now. Well, outside of the only person I would recommend right now is actually Beth and Flynn Family Lending. The way that they have their source of capital makes them a little bit more reliable, I would say. I mean, as people have mentioned, the secondary market for loans has dried up, right? So anyone that's not a bank that was offering a 30-year loan, they don't have capital right now. And some of them are lending riskily, and you can, I mean, if you want to take advantage of that, you can, but I don't think these guys who are still lending 30-year loans will be in business if they keep doing it, because there's no buyers for it right now, right? In terms of short-term loans, I mean, everyone sees the risk, and I can tell you there's no more 10% down options. I mean, I'm seeing everything's at least 20 to 30% down. Some lenders are requiring something called interest reserves, right? Which are borrower funded, which means that if you, I think merchants is one where you had put down a whole year's worth of interest payments up front when you do the loan. And to me, that means an extra 10% down, to be honest. So just, I mean, lenders who are net lending, it's at very low LTVs right now. I'm looking at some of the national lenders too, like Lima One, right? They used to lend at 90% loan to cost, even for brand new investors who've never done a deal. And right now they're at 65% loan to cost and 50% ARV. So just be careful out there. I would say that just if you get under contract and using hard money, just make sure you have a strong financing contingency or one of those new COVID-19 contingencies, right? To make sure you can get out if your lender pulls out, because right now that's looking like it's still happening on a daily basis. So just be careful out there.
Leslie Bautista is asking, who is your go-to lender for a HELOC with over 7 financed properties? Anybody want to respond to that?
7, you should be fine. It's 10 that you got to worry about.
Julia says,
The HELOC might have different requirements. Every lender might have their own requirement for HELOC. It might not be 10.
It makes sense to me for some reason to try and make relationships with, you know, different lenders, you know, because every lender is going to have their own spreads and their own pipeline they're opening up and shutting down. Does this make any sense right now, what I'm saying, Keith? You know, and that maybe making relationships that we have like 10 different lenders reporting to us where they're at daily, giving us a post, like who's open. I mean, I don't feel like it's going to take business from anybody, any of our lender buddies, because as soon as you say, you know, our pipeline's open and this is where we're at, you're going to get flooded and then you're going to get full. You guys are going to shut down again, you know, for 30 days until you catch up or whatever. And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the thing right now is that your big banks and your consumer loan companies, similar to, I'm at Loan Depot, you've got Guild, Caliber, all the other fine folks in that bucket. We took on a ton of loans, right? So in 4 days, Loan Depot locked $5 billion worth of loans in 4 days. That's huge. So what we're going to do, we're going to peak and valley since we loaded up the pipeline, we're going to artificially increase our rates to slow down the traffic, right? So then we'll come down, we'll fund off the pipeline and our rates will get sharper again. So each one of our different CLAs out there are going to go through some sort of semblance of that manufacturing process and balancing supply and demand. And with the hedging of the market last week, a lot of companies just took a huge bath. And what the Fed's doing right now, it's cool that they're buying the mortgage-backed securities, but it's actually hurting the short hedges or the margin calls and the shorts that were done the week prior. So we'll see how it all plays out. But what I would suggest right now is we look at the whole market from big bank, consumer loan company, and then the credit union. It's one of the least utilized places, and the credit unions will still have liquidity because they're not dependent on Fannie Freddie. They're lending their balance sheet. So however their credit dynamic is, they're still looking for really good deals to do. So I would say you should definitely have the wide spectrum, not just one CLA or not just one big bank that you work with. You should be having 2 or 3 in each bucket right now.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk to the real estate agents that are out there. Lisa Sprout, are you on with us? Are you able to talk?
Yeah, I'm here.
So you're an active buyer's agent. What's going on? Are you still having your buyers move forward or want to make offers, or what's the lending situation with those borrowers?
So I've just had 2 deals fall apart due to lending situations on jumbo loans. So it sounds like maybe the jumbo loans are a little bit harder to close right now. But I do still have buyers looking. I, showed a house yesterday at like 6 p.m. And got another deal under contract the day before. So buyers are still buying, especially buyers who were beat out on a bunch of stuff 2 weeks ago when things were still really active. So those are the buyers that were looking, before I had to stop showing. But yeah, they're still there.
And those buyers, though, with their interest rates, are they bouncing around, or they must be, right?
Yeah, so even just talking to my lender this morning, he said they went up a whole point in 24 hours.
And so how are you dealing with that with your buyers when you guys are out looking for properties to buy?
So depending on the buyer, but so one buyer, we got the deal under contract, and then he just was in constant contact with his lender to lock in a good rate when it came around. So, it's a little risky, I guess, but if they're, willing to wait, communicate with their lender all the time, if the lender's on top of it and is always looking at the rates, I think it'll work out.
But Keith, is it fair to say that, let's say somebody's working with a lender and that lender has their pipeline full, then, I don't want to, do wrong by any of our lenders out there. I'm just talking shop here, right? If does it make sense if you're working with buyers that can they qualify with more than one lender, or that messes up their credit, or that broker has a few different lending relationships, and whoever is basically able to lend for those 4 or 5 days where you guys have an open pipeline, you slam into one of your top favorite 3? What do you think? Just to be fair to
I think the marketing method right now is both to all y'all and our clients that are in the world to purchase. In this time of uncertainty, until you have recording numbers, there's nothing guaranteed. Okay. I'll throw that out there because it sucks to say, but it's the true reality. So I'd be curious, Lisa, was your jumbo lender, were they a big bank or were they a CLA?
Citibank was
Which
the
bank?
lender.
I'm sorry.
Citibank?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what we've seen on the jumbo side, I really didn't speak to that and I should have, but the jumbo side is all insurance, it's REITs, it's all this institutional money coming at it. And they completely backed out because I had one of my jumbo outlets said that similar to you guys in the hard money situation, their only way that they would fund the loan, and this was any loan that wasn't funded, right? So anything in the pipeline, it could be docs out, it could be just underwritten. If they couldn't prove 15 months worth of reserves, the deal was dead, right? So in the jumbo market, they have safe harbor if they can show an ability to repay. So that means that that borrower can't come sue them for predatory lending practices. So when this all hit and everybody's going to be in some way, shape, or form either work from home or unemployed, they're trying to cover their ass and not get sued in 6, 12 months down the road. So they just changed their guidelines. And so you will continue to see guidelines change overnight. So I think the thing that I've said on SIC's Facebook page, and I've instructed all my agents that we were under contract, I've got like 5 deals under contract now. I'm like, push up the closing date. We will run to closing and just get it done. Because until we're out of the trough and we're coming back up, there's no guarantees of anything.
Adrian, you want to pipe in?
Again, yeah, okay, I was on mute. So for mortgage brokers, they have access to a bunch of different wholesale lenders. So if one, particular wholesale lender has shitty rates for the day, then, there are others that might be able to make it work. So just something to think about.
And Keith, was there any topic about working with mortgage brokers? Is there any, rather than going direct, is there any benefits or not benefits? Or Adrian, anybody?
Well, I mean, this is one benefit, right? You get access to, 20, 30 different wholesale lenders. So if one particular lender decides to have crappy rates on that day you decide to lock, then, there may be another one that's better.
All right, guys. Let's pipe in here. Let's change gears a little bit from lending. William, are you with us? William Shabolt?
I am.
Can you unmic yourself? There he is. Can you give us some updates from all your goodness and all the information you share, like on eviction rules that are coming down, or anything else in regards to that?
Sure. So obviously there's a lot of moving parts and things are changing rapidly, but let me cover this situation as we speak on evictions. So starting at the top level, the state has a moratorium on evictions that goes through until April the 17th. You're prohibited from evicting for non-payment of rent. You can still evict if you attach an affidavit that says that there's a health and safety of the tenant or other individuals. So law enforcement's prohibited from serving or acting on eviction notices, except for that one where it's waste, nuisance, criminal activity. So then jumping down a jurisdictional level to King County, the sheriff is just stopping serving all writs of restitution. So the writ of restitution is basically the legal document that gives the sheriffs the authority to go in and remove somebody. So it's the very end of the process. The suspending enforcement of evictions from March 17th until further notice. You can still send evictions to the sheriffs, they're just not going to act on them. So then jumping up to the city of Everett, they 17th of March for 30 days with possible extension. Again, ban on evictions up in Everett. Does anybody have any rentals in the city of Kenmore? Okay, so city of Kenmore did something similar until April the 24th. So then the big one is the city of Seattle. So the mayor put forward her original executive order, and the way that the city charter works in the city of Seattle is it then has to go to the council who can modify it, which is what they did. So the mayor's original order was for 30 days from the 14th of March, and the city increased it to 60 days. They also added on commercial evictions to it and preventing law enforcement from executing physical evictions. This was slightly before the King County Sheriff's announcement. The thing that's kind of disturbing at the moment, and it goes for a full vote next Monday, is that they have 2 new ordinances. And the first one basically will extend the eviction ban for 6 months after the emergency finishes. And then the next one basically forces the landlord to take a interest-free, late charge-free payment plan for 12 months for any rent, not only in the period of the emergency, but in a 6-month period after that. We're looking at a legal challenge on that. The problem with it is we are in an emergency, but at the same time, we have a constitution. The constitution just isn't suspended because we have a health crisis emergency at the moment. So there is a possibility of a legal challenge on that. I think the forcing people into a payment plan for such a lengthy period of time is probably could be ruled as a taking. Okay, so does anybody have any questions on the evictions?
Adrian, good question. Ask your question.
Sorry, I was muted again. Yeah, so I have a question for evictions. What if it's a purchase and let's say they have a delayed possession, and can we still evict them?
Nope.
No. So are they considered as tenants in this case?
Yeah, there'd be if you don't have a lease, there would be an at-will tenant.
Okay.
Well, that sucks because that was a good strategy to get our deals closed faster, right, Adrian? Is closing on a purchase as soon as possible due to rates and everything, and letting the seller rent back for a bit of time just to get closed. And it sounds like that now adds an extra layer of risk. I wonder, Adrian, just talking out loud, if that was the case and we felt like there was going to be some risk related to that, is if there could be a holdback of funds to the seller that is now the tenant, that is held in escrow until the time they move out. I mean, I've done that on my own wholesale.
It's common, especially on a wholesale deal. We encounter situations where the seller just wants to stick around for a little bit longer, so they have funds to buy their next place or whatever. So, and every time the wholesaler is involved, they throw in the holdback clause. So there's some protection there. You're like $5,000, $10,000. I mean, I think hopefully it's important. Hopefully this, former seller cares about that and $5,000 or $10,000, and instead of stay there forever.
Julie, here's a question. Is Kai on the phone?
Kai, are you on the phone? I don't know if Kai's on there.
What if you did a short-term like Airbnb rental style rent back, and they're more like a hotel tenant as opposed to a legitimate tenant?
Good one.
You want me to take this one?
Yes, please.
So I think you'd run into issues there of the definition. So I actually have a Airbnb, and as you point out correctly, they're defined as hotel guests, and you don't need an eviction. You can actually just get a police to come along and remove them. However, they would then argue that because they've been there for a period of time, that they're actually a residential tenant. And I don't think you would get the police to actually physically eject them. Unlike a actual Airbnb rental where you can have the law enforcement come and physically remove somebody.
Lisa Sprute is saying foreclosure evictions. What about foreclosure evictions? There won't be any foreclosures, but.
Well, exactly. But again, to them as well. But keep in mind that the statewide warrant expires on the 17th of April. And under the state constitution, the governor can't automatically renew that moratorium. It's session, which they're currently not, but there is discussion that they're going to have to recall the legislature to pass some bills, or it goes to what's known as the four corners. So it is the Republican and Democrat leaders of the House and the Senate, all four of them have to agree to any extension after 30 days. So there is a little bit of leverage there, and we've been working with both sides of the aisle. And we can't just have this situation where it's a blanket ban. There's got to be some nexus to losing your job, and there's got to be some rental assistance. And the rental assistance, it's slow coming around, but we are seeing that. There's some money in the bill that the Senate passed yesterday for rental assistance. Most of that is actually going to go to the public housing authorities for Section 8, because they're going to take a bigger hit on this. There is also a $100 billion bill that was dropped by Representative Kilmer and Heck that would create a new rental assistance program. The way that would work would be a big block grant to the state and other jurisdictions, and the Department of Commerce is working on a proposal to bring in a rental assistance program. So obviously now has some experience from running the landlord mitigation fund.
Aaron Royce is asking, what about Pierce County for evictions? Same.
Pierce County falls under the state. There is no separate one like King County in Seattle, so it just falls under the governor's moratorium of evictions.
So does that mean that once this expires, that we should all be like teed up in a queue to slam through evictions while we have a break from the storm?
I don't think that's going to be a great look for the industry. I mean, I'm a small landlord myself. I've got tenants. I had one tenant call me up yesterday, and he was the one person I knew that he was not going to be able to pay his rent because he's a tattoo artist in the city of Seattle. And I'm willing to work with him as long as he's prepared to go out there and apply for assistance that he qualifies for, which he just didn't understand that because he's classed as a small business, he could apply for a grant from the city of Seattle. There's also the SBA Economic Injury Relief disaster loans, which is great for landlords. Landlords do qualify for this. In the past, they've had it where, you know, they're classing renting out a property as an investment and not a business. But for this situation, the SBA has said that rental property owners are eligible for SBA disaster loans, which is 3.75% up to 30 years. And there's a period of time that you don't have to pay back to start with. So that's an option for people that are both tenants that have small businesses and for rental property owners.
Go ahead, Larry Gill. Why don't you speak up and ask some questions here, asking some good stuff.
So I think one thing that we know that Jeff Watson basically, when I'm basically giving a reprieve to my tenants, and basically it's like let's do something like either let them skip April payment or let them do half payment down, you know, or half month's rent. And in that way, you keep in really good graces with your tenants, and then, you know, and basically they're going to be looking to you to, you know, they want to pay their rent. The other thing is too is let your tenants know about any programs, basically like
SBA.
Yeah, and one thing about this money that's supposed to be coming down, just a little thing is that basically, you know, for making sure that people have their taxes in place that they've actually filed for 2018, because if they have
got their extension for 2019.
Right. And so then keeping in contact with our tenants is basically, you know, we're trying to help them as well too.
Yeah, one thing we did, I mean, we don't have a lot of rentals, but, you know, we did reach out to them and just said, hey, you know, how are things going? You know, you're doing okay. And fortunately for us, you know, like one of our tenants said, oh man, business is great. I actually help people, you know, transition to virtual businesses. So I'm booming, you know, and he's working from home. But, you know, it's good to, I think, check in with your tenants and see how they're doing, see what you can offer to do to help them, and let them know about, you know, some different programs and benefits that might be available to them, and then just try to be a good guy, because when this ends, I mean, they'll, you know, everybody's freaked out right now, but if we have the capacity to be a good human, I think it'll come back to us.
So there's a good point. Lika says she just got done updating one of her multifamilies in Seattle. She's about to list it for rent. Does anybody have any advice? Adrian, maybe, or anybody out there that is working in placing rentals, if there's anybody out there, or what's working for you as far as your deposits, or, you know, how much are you, you know, market rents or what, and you're trying to list reasonably below that. I can read you guys, or I'll share with you guys. I'll post it on Seattle Investors Club maybe. I own a big apartment building out in Lakewood, and I'm connected to one of the larger apartment building owners in town. This is Dan Sanchez, knows who I'm talking about here. Goodman Real Estate and John Goodman. And I got a letter from them last night with what they are going to be doing on their rentals, which they are, you know, you know, large landlord, not only in Washington, but out of state as well. Happy to share that with you guys. Let's see what else we got here. Does anybody have any advice? If you were going to put a rental on today, anybody, would you adjust your deposit at all? Or what would you do to get a tenant in there quickly? I'm actually,
did you list yours, Julie?
I'm actually VIP in the works, baby. VIP education community. I am showing my condo in Ballard today, which happens to be next door to the grocery store. So we're all just going to the grocery store. And I am going to just walk next door to our building and open the door and let the tenant go in and look. It's an out of state, somebody who's moving here out of state that actually works for like the FBI. And I never before would accept dogs, but of course now, Adrian, I should post on your pet friendly site there, but going to accept dogs where I wouldn't have before. And I am not reducing my deposit. Adrian, go ahead and pipe in.
Yeah, I think it's a bad idea to reduce your security deposit, especially now. A lot of times, I mean, first of all, the city limits how much you can charge 1 month's rent in city of Seattle. So, but don't reduce that because that's your only buffer for in case if they can't pay rent the following month. I mean, at least you got a security deposit that, you know, it's there. And then, yeah, pet deposits, there's 25% limit in city of Seattle, 25% of 1 month's rent. But yeah, if they have a pet, might as well. And as far as I know, there's no limitation on pet rent in city of Seattle. So you could, you know, throw that in there. As far as rents, I would prefer to offer concessions, just like the, you know, big apartments. They would do like, you know, 1 month's free rent or, you know, something like that. Because if you try to get a commercial loan later, or it's always better to have that, you know, higher amount on the lease. You know,
Totally.
whether you decide to do a commercial loan or a conventional loan, you know, having that higher amount on the lease always makes things better, you know, even from a valuation perspective as well.
I think Adrian makes a very, very important point, is to do whatever you can to leave your gross rents or your rental number where it is, and give, you know, like we call it, a concession, or reduce some other type of funds, you know, if they're paying for parking or something like that. Does it make sense in your lease to break that apart? And when you're giving free this or that, take it off, you know, the extra charges that you charge for before you take it off of the rent, to protect your ability to underwrite later at your full market rents. That's what we're talking about, right, Adrian? For lending.
Yeah, lending and just overall valuation, right? If someone values an
Right.
income property, they look at, you know, what the rents are, and they don't care what concessions you gave them, you know, when they moved in necessarily.
So I think one of the other things that we also need to be proactive on is basically, we've got a mortgage on one of our houses with Chase. And of course, Chase, as a note owner, does not want the house back. So we've reached out to them and said, hey, are you willing to offer a forbearance on an investment property? And so far on the website, what did you find out, Marcia?
Well, they don't have really much on the website. And when I actually tried to call them, they said, your hold time is between 8.5 hours and 12.5 hours. So I sent them a direct message, but, you know, we'll see. And I'm not concerned about needing it, but, you know, why not just check and see? I think it's worthwhile, because there is a lot of money that is being funneled to these banks to help with that sort of thing.
I'll just say that my rental that I have some good news on hopefully today, I went before we got shut down and did just a basic video walkthrough, and was able to send it to, you know, everybody in my team and post it everywhere. And that's, I think, what definitely got it rented for me, or at least continued to have interest for me. William, so you say you have a couple of points. Go ahead and pipe in.
Yeah, sure. Just following up, I just want to clarify, in Seattle, the limitation on security deposits is first month's rent, not 1 month's rent. And there's nothing that actually stops somebody having a different first month's rent than the rest of the period of time. That was something that I picked up when they were going through that process. And we didn't point out that they can't do anything about having a different first month's rent than the rest of the period. So that's
What
just
does that
something to keep in mind.
Does that mean that you should, if you're going to give a concession, take it off the second month so you can keep your first month full so you can collect a full month security deposit?
Correct. Because if you read the ordinance, which is now the Seattle Municipal Code, that 25% is based on the first month's rent rather than the ongoing rent or a month's rent. It reads as first month's rent. So that's an important thing to consider. Just going back to a few things that Larry said, yeah, it's really important to reach out to your tenants. And I think you can come off as being a really great landlord in this situation. Just want to let everybody know that even if you're not a member of the Rental Housing Association, you can go on the website, go into resources, COVID-19, and then there are 3 sheets for renters, one in King County, one in Pierce County, one in Snohomish County, that gives your tenants a list of all the assistance programs that we know of. So, that's a great thing to get out to your tenants. Just to be clarified, I'm glad that you're just going to the grocery store, Julie, because the governor's office has made it clear that showing real estate in person is not an essential business for the next 2 weeks.
Understood.
So,
some...
I mean, the master builders came out and said, we're interpreting the governor's orders that construction can still continue. The governor's office came out yesterday and was like, nope, unless it's construction for an essential building like a hospital, or whether it's for structural integrity or for an emergency, no construction for the next 2
We
weeks.
have some people asking here. Aaron says he still wants to know whether he should sell a rental that's becoming vacant or try and rent it out again.
My 2 cents on that, this situation hasn't changed anything from before. Is what was the numbers before? What are your personal long-term goals with it? And it's like, okay, so if you sell it, what else are you going to do with that capital? Are you going to be able to make more with that capital doing something else?
Yeah, I was thinking of redeploying it out of state because I was never intended to keep it as a rental. It was originally a flip that went over budget. So I kept it as a rental for a year, had a great tenant, but now that she's leaving, I'm kind of wondering about going back to the original plan.
Yeah, I mean, this is such an individual kind of subject for people, whether to sell or whether to continue renting. Just out of interest, which city is the
Milton?
Milton. Okay. Yeah. So at least you're not dealing with the city of Seattle's crazy ordinances, which I'll guarantee you there's going to be more of them coming down the pike. I already know that there's a couple of people on the other side working on a rent control ordinance. So I think for you, it's really, what's your circumstances?
Yeah.
I've diversified out of Washington State. Per unit, I now own more out of Washington State than I do in Washington State.
So you guys, it's 12:28 p.m. right now. We've been on for an hour. William, very valuable insight. If there's any way we can get you to come back and join us weekly, same time, same place at 11:30, everybody who's on today, this is going to be a weekly thing. It's just going to be an open forum discussion with updates and questions. Before we sign off today, and thank you so much for everybody showing up. This is purely just let's just help each other and let's stay informed with each other. Everybody asks really good questions and we appreciate all your input. Every question is a good question. And I invite you to come back every week right now at 11:30, and we will be posting the link to the Zoom. Where will that be posted each week, Joe? Joe's probably out doing push-ups outside somewhere. Go ahead.
It's on our Meetup page. So everybody should be subscribed to our Meetup at meetup.com/Seattle Investors Club, and then you'll get the updates for the meetings that includes the link for the Zoom.
Awesome stuff. And if anybody would like certain topics covered in deep dive on the podcast, just hit me up. You can just hit me at Julie@SeattleInvestorsClub.com, and anything you guys want to know about in detail, I will source my network and get the expert to come talk to us on the podcast, which is hopefully you guys are all keeping up to date. We have some really great ones lining up that we're, trying to get on. William, love to have you on as
Absolutely.
well. But I thank you all for coming today. Does anybody have any last minute questions? William just posted some resources webpage. Joe, are you able to grab that?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll grab that and we'll post it on Seattle Investors Club, everybody, if you can't see it in the chat. Does anybody have any last minute questions before we sign off today? Either type them or say them. Jared, we didn't get to hear from Jared too much. Jared, what's your plan on flipping? You are Mr. Flip here with us today. So how's it going for you? Lika, I know you're still on if you're still on, but what's happening in your world, Jared?
For me, I have quite a few properties coming up in April. So, figuring out kind of how I'm going to navigate the next couple of weeks is something that's been very high priority the last couple of days. And I'm still not 100% certain. I know we're not supposed to keep working. So I think we're going to have to fall into that category as well. So it's just right now I have a lot of properties coming up into the finishes. So I'm still ordering my materials and basically preparing to kind of hit the ground running as soon as we're able to get back to it. And then for me personally, whenever the market gets a little weird like this, I try to hover staying close to the median price point as much as possible. So, from here moving forward until things stabilize a lot more, I'm not going to be selling anything above $1 million. I have a couple properties now that are going to be, one quite a bit above that and another one around there. But I'm still cautiously buying. I changed my buying criteria about a year ago, and I'm still sticking to, pretty strict numbers and not taking on properties that have any kind of, weird nuances to them. So just buying really conservative and, bringing my, ARVs down lower and not pushing price points as much.
All right. Anybody else?
I think, so I just sold my last flip, and I've been advised by people that have been through many recessions not to buy another flip for at least the next 6 months to kind of see where the market's going and what we're going to end up doing with all this unemployment that should hit us in about a month. So I'm holding off on buying any more flips for the time being, but I am going to continue to work on burst strategies. I do have a few construction projects, but they're all going to be rentals. So that's where I stand.
Does anybody have any input on the type
Julie,
of...
just a minute. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Moon.
I want to add a comment regarding the hard money versus HELOC. There's another resource that you could borrow money pretty easily. I'm not sure if everyone's tapped into it. If you folks have stock investment accounts, you go turn that stock investment account into a margin account. If it's a margin account, you could take a percentage of that money out and use it for real estate. The risk there is if the stock, your assets go down, you still have to meet a certain percentage of the margin. And if it goes below that, either you need to sell some stock or put some cash in. Like for example, let's say you have $1 million in your stock account. You could take up $500,000, borrow $500,000 at 5% to use it for real estate. So if your asset goes up to like $1.2 million, you're fine. But if it goes down to $800,000, then you need to put some money back into the account.
So it treats it as if the $1 million is still in the stock account, right? When it's valuing that.
Yeah, you're not selling your assets. You're not selling your stock. You're just borrowing. The other way to look at it is treat the stocks as your real estate property. You're just borrowing money against it.
Hey, Moon, do you know if someone would be able to do that for like a primary purchase?
Well, for the stock account, you could take that money out and they'll just wire it to your bank, or they'll send you a check, use that money for anything.
Okay. So it's not like a self-directed IRA situation?
No.
Okay.
And for Fidelity, for example, if you borrow $1 million, your interest rate is 5%. If you borrow less than that, it could be as high as 7%, but it'll go higher than 7%.
Good stuff. All right, guys, we're going to be wrapping it up so everybody can get back to their life.
Sitting
And
at home.
what's that?
Sitting at home.
Back to the homeschooling.
Yeah.
I got a question though. So what does everybody think? Somebody just said that they were going to hold off buying flips for 6 months. My personal expectation is that, at least in Seattle, I don't know about Tacoma, but at least in Seattle, the market will just come roaring right back with 3 weeks worth of listings, and they're going to get swallowed up immediately as soon as this is over. But I'd be curious what other people think.
I'm on your side, honestly. Like, I've been staying in touch with people with listings. I called on a listing yesterday for a client. It was a flipped house down in SeaTac, listed at $475. I called for a client. It was listed 4 days ago. With the reviewed it yesterday, and they had 15 offers. I personally know a lot of buyers are still out looking, and I could be wrong. I don't know, but my mentality is our market was so strong before all of this happened that there's still a lot of buyers out there. Seattle and the surrounding areas is such a heavy tech industry. We're all working from home right now, right? Or all of the tech people still are. My girlfriend works at Amazon. I have tons of friends that work for tech industries. Sure, they're annoyed, but they're still working right now. And I feel that once this is over and everyone wants to get back to real life, there's still going to be little inventory unless all of the sellers freak out and sell, which I don't foresee happening either. So that's kind of my mentality on this. And so again, I'm personally not pushing price points and shooting up into the higher end luxury because they usually are the first ones to pull back. But all of the median price point with all these people who've been wanting houses, I feel are still going to be there when this gets back, and they're going to come back out looking for homes again.
Yeah, I've been getting busier and busier and busier for the past 2 weeks, right up until the deadline yesterday. And so that was what was driving my opinion about that too, is that there were plenty of buyers to take up the space from the buyers that stepped back, for sure.
I listed 2 houses right before this happened. So like about a week before everything started to slowly get put on lockdown. They were both at very different price points. One in Everett at $475, one in Bothell at $750. My Bothell house went pending $130K over asking with 9 offers, and my Everett property got 9 offers as well and went almost $50K over asking. And those were very different price points, completely different locations. And I'm seeing it all over. SeaTac, the same thing with 15 offers. I heard someone the other day, this was a couple weeks ago, a property listed in Kirkland. They got multiple offers, sold 200K over asking. I have another friend who listed one in Kirkland just under $1 million. The first day, and this was with no open houses and only scheduled showings, they had over 20 showings in the first day. And and they got multiple offers as well. So I know the buyers are still out there, and I'm expecting people to want to come back once this is through and want to go back to finding their homes and get back to real life.
I think the market's going to go right back to where it was this spring in about a year's time. Right now, you're seeing an uptick in buyers, and this is just my take. It's because people that were ready to buy in the spring market had already sold their stocks. They were all ready to act upon the purchase if needed be. Like, the last flip that I sold went 175K over ask, and we had 5 offers, and this is 2 weeks ago. We had 160 people through the 2 open houses, and we had 75 showings. But it still puts me in, and this is my risk tolerance or appetite, in a place of caution, because all those buyers had already sold their stock. They were ready to act upon the house they wanted to buy. Going into the next wave of buyers, they've lost money in stock. And so if you have flips that are coming on the market in the next 6 to 8 months, I would be cautious of that. But if you have the holding power to hold it for another year, you're going to be golden. Our market's going to be up and running, especially if the virus has been curbed. So there's that. So it just depends on your holding power, depends on the size of flip. And like Jared said, it's also about the price point. Be careful with the lower end houses like 500K and lower too, because those are the people that are losing their jobs. Those are the people that are not having that extra money to put into the homes that they want to buy. So I just be cautious and pick your project wisely.
Adrian, make your comment.
Yeah, I think Leica has a good point about the tech salaries, and a lot of it is stock. Yeah, Amazon's doing okay, but every other company, a lot of people get paid in stocks. When people say they have a $300,000 salary, $400,000 salary, it's not all cash. So just got to keep that in mind.
Right. So Adrian, like you said, most tech salaries have 160,000 cash cap, and nobody at Amazon makes more than 160K.
Yeah, so for Amazon, let's say if Amazon's stock falls, right? The point is, they only have $160,000 a year gross income, and after tax, I mean, it's not much, right? Most of their money, if they're trying to get their down payment funds, to get 20% down for a $1.5 million house, it's still 300,000, and most of the time they would get it from their stocks, unless they have 300 grand saved up, right? So that's just it's an important point that, a lot of people that work in tech, most of their money is sitting in stocks and not necessarily cash on hand ready to deploy on a house. And Leica mentioned that the people that are already buying, they already sold their stock in advance to buy their house.
Right.
So if the next wave of buyers, if their stock value dropped by 50%, they're not going to have that down payment to spend on the house. The reason why people are bidding like crazy for a house is because, the stock market's been going up like crazy, past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, such that, it's nothing to them. They just make that money. It's like money falling from the sky, basically, because they get stocks from their employer, and the value of their stock has gone up, 4 or 5 times. And, that's the same dynamics in the Bay Area, right? People work in tech, they have their startup gets sold, or their stock value goes up 4, 5, 6 times. So their original, 200,000 in stocks instantly becomes $1 million, and they all of a sudden they have an extra $1 million sitting around that, they could afford to pay 300,000-400,000 more for a house. And that's where we're getting the bidding wars, is because, it's been so easy for them to earn the money. So that's an important kind of dynamic to consider. Will they still have this constant supply of basically, free money to spend and splurge on the house?
And Dan, what's your comment on that? You made a comment that you heard something from an Amazon VP.
Oh, no, I was just reiterating. That was my experience with an Amazon vice president is, I was surprised to learn that her salary was only, around 150 or 60 or something. But then it was like another 200 something plus in stock. So I was just, reiterating that point. That was my experience too.
Nice. Okay, guys.
Just to throw it out there, all the 3 major tech companies in the greater Seattle area have almost recovered completely since the end of February. So I don't know how deep that is. I just want to reiterate Nee's sentiment. And I share the same sentiment. It all depends on how long we're all cooped up in our houses. That will be the determining factor, because that will then lead to layoffs and more deeper. It's about employment. It's about employment. The longer we go and have more people unemployed, the longer the employment issue will continue, right? So that to me is the key factor.
Good stuff, guys. All right, guys, I'm going to cut it off there. It's almost 12:45. Great discussion today. I hope you guys all show up every week while we're in lockdown here. Dan says the governor's making an announcement today that it may go on longer than expected. So everybody,
Mike, exit stage left. Bam.
You to take us down, Dan. Thanks. All right, you guys. Thank you again. I'm going to cut it off right there. And I will see you all next week. Joe, you're going to post William's link into our Facebook page.
Yep.
And again, this is going to be a new Zoom link every week. Is that right, Joe?
Correct.
So you guys in order to get on this call every week, you guys are going to need to just go to our Meetup page, please, and join us on Meetups and grab the Zoom link off there. I'll also be posting it in our Facebook page, but Thanks, everybody. And if any of you, you want to make sure we have some topics covered next week, go ahead and hit me up at julie@seattleInvestorsClub.com, and I'll make sure that we cover those topics. Of course, I'm available to all of you anytime during the week, not just on this call. My Rolodex is super deep. And if I don't know any answers, I certainly know the people that do. So thanks again, everybody. And we'll talk to you next week. Ciao, ciao.
Julie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for your insights. Awesome stuff.
Bye.
See
Bye-bye.
you guys.